Fright Fights invites you to VoidCon. VoidCon is a gathering of horror writers, filmmakers, artists, musicians, and creators, a counterculture of contourism, occulted and shadowed. This is not a convention at which you'll find purveyors of Cthulhu plushies and Scream posters. This is a convention at which you'll find forbidden things, subversive and dangerous ideas. Horror. Screenings include Scooter McCrae's Underground Short, St. Frankenstein, Derek Carey's horror anthology Hole in the Wall, and a screening of the Troma classic Redneck Zombies, hosted by Troma Now's Fantastic Disaster Piece Theater. Special guests include Brian Keene, Joe Koch, Charlene Ellsby, Paula D. Ash, Burial Grid, Of Siri, Weird Punk Books, Clash Books, Filthy Loot, and more to be announced. Get your tickets today.
Boils and ghouls. Turn out the lights. And keep the popcorn coming. Because it's time for another episode of Fright Fights Podcast. Fright Fights Podcast. Get ready for your gore gang. Tyler Cavan, Chris Lax, and Mike McKinney tackling horror news, reviews, and fight for their survival. Coming to you from the Fright Fights Fear Lodge. Get ready to sink your fangs into a battle that will make your blood run cold. This is Fright Fights.
Welcome back, all you Fright Fights fanatics. We are here with another episode of Fright Fights Podcast. I am Chris. Got my friends here with me, Tyler and Mike. How are you guys doing today?
What's going on?
Doing good. What's up?
Ready to talk some John Carpenter films. How about you guys?
Heck yeah.
Not really. I'm just joking. Yeah, of course.
So listen to this. I want everybody to listen. So the last episode we recorded at the very end of it, you knew it was coming.
Yep.
We chose the movies that we wanted because it landed on John Carpenter films. And Mike was immediately like, I want to choose Halloween 2. I want to choose Halloween 2. And I wasn't thinking anything of it. I was just thinking, hey, it's movies that John Carpenter has worked on. Anything he's worked on is a part of it, right? So we were all like, yeah, let's do it. And then I started thinking, after Mike watched his movie, after I watched Mike's movie, and I don't know if you watched it or not, Tyler, but I was like, man, usually when people do these like director spotlights or these spotlight films, it's always the movie they directed, not the ones they wrote or the ones that they produced or anything like that, right? So I sent you guys a message and I was like, hey, Rick Rosenthal wrote or directed Halloween 2, and Carpenter is the one that wrote it. Are we still considering this like the John Carpenter film, or how are we doing this? And then Tyler was like, yeah, it should be the ones that he directed, not wrote or produced. And Mike was sending me a message back. He was like, well, fuck you guys.
You know what that really reminded me of, Lex? You remind me of the kid in school on a Friday. Raise your hand. Hey teacher, you didn't give me any homework. You didn't give the class any homework. Can we get some homework? And then everybody's pissed off. God, you called me out. The best Halloween out of the franchise, Halloween 2, and I didn't get to watch it. But it is the truth. So
we had to ruin that plan somehow. We were like, maybe we choose that to begin with. And we were like, give him the benefit of the doubt. He wants to see Halloween 2. We're going to watch Halloween 2. But then at the end of the day, you know what? We had to shatter your dreams.
Well, he came into work immediately afterwards, and I was like, hey, sorry about that, Mike. And he just immediately flipped me off and said, fuck you again, Lex.
I think it went for a record.
Mike, have we heard enough of this Halloween 2 talk?
Oh, my God. It's the best one. It is the best one, in my opinion, at least.
Carpenter would disagree.
Well, Carpenter can suck it. No, to me, like, I think it was like the creepiest one out of them all. But I mean, still, in my opinion, Halloween 2 then the original 1978 Halloween goes, Halloween 2 first, and the original one's second. But a lot will argue that's not legit. But oh well.
You
So
could just
before we actually do the battle later on and stuff, I do want to ask you guys. It doesn't matter whether it's part of the ones that we review tonight or anything, but what is your favorite John Carpenter movie?
Mine is easy, and here's the thing: John Carpenter has many that I would consider classics, and it's really hard to choose one because the guy really nailed in like, 2 to 3 very solid genre pieces so far in directing. I don't think he's gonna make any more, but Um, I would think The Thing is definitely my favorite. That's a foreshadow. And I've always loved it since I've been a kid. And every time I watch it, it continues to age like fine wine because I just love it so much.
I was gonna say, I think I'm just a sucker for Halloween, so I'm definitely gonna go with Halloween 1978, of course, because I think that's what really kickstarted slashers, in my opinion. That's what I first saw and was terrified of: the man with the white mask, the boogeyman. So Halloween for me was terrifying when I saw it when I was like maybe 7 or 8. My dad used to let me watch it, and maybe that's the way I am now. But Halloween really terrified me at a young age, and that's kind of top shelf when I talk about horror movies for me.
Yeah, I gotta agree with Mike. I think the Halloween is probably John Carpenter's best movie that he's ever been a part of. I love Halloween 2 as a writing from him, but as far as directors or directing movies, the first Halloween has got to be my favorite that he's been involved with, simply just because of how easy it is to rewatch that movie and still be so interested in almost every detail of the film. It's just a great slasher film.
Yeah.
But we'll get into more details later. Um, I know that Tyler, you have some movies that you want to talk about that you watched, but before I have a surprise for you guys, okay? So I'm going to play a little game of tagline trivia, horror movie edition for you guys. Best out of three is going to be the winner, okay? I got 3 movies that I just randomly picked the DVDs and Blu-rays off the shelf. I'm going to read the tagline to you, and I want you guys to answer what movie you think that tagline is from. First person to get it right wins, and the best out of 3 will win. If end up being a tie where you guys don't get either of them or whatever, I do have a fourth one laid out for you all to determine a winner. Um, so let's go ahead and start this. See how well you guys know your horror movie taglines. First up, he can taste your fear.
He can taste your fear.
This is so broad.
I know, like, what the heck?
Can taste your fear.
Yeah, a lot of times there's little hidden meanings inside of taglines, and sometimes they're just so generic that it could be for any horror movie ever made.
I mean, so let's think.
Is it Jeepers Creepers? Like, taste your fear? Like, was that smell your fear? I don't know.
You're wrong, Mike.
Well, fuck you, Lex.
Could it be Candyman? It would be Ice Cream Man, Candyman. You could taste your fear, Freddy Krueger.
Yeah, taste your fear.
Tyler, you have an answer?
Just a guess. You could taste your fear. I guess I'm gonna just say Candyman.
Wrong. He can taste your fear. Jeepers Creepers 2.
Oh my God, I was close. Jesus Christ.
We have to give Mike that one.
I'm going to flip
No.
you off 79 times tomorrow when I see you. I was pretty.
Right.
That's what it sounded like. Okay.
You're on the right track. I couldn't say anything because it'd give it away. All right, next up.
God.
I remember seeing that tagline on there too. I don't know why.
I did too. Like I remember I saw it or heard it from somewhere. Yeah.
Next up, when you open the door to the unknown, there's no telling who will drop in or who will drop dead.
Read it one more time.
When you open the door to the unknown, there's no telling who will drop in or who will drop dead.
Who will
Go ahead,
drop?
Mike.
Man, all right. Say it one more time for me. I'm really trying to think. Okay.
Just show us the movie, and we'll say it from there.
Yeah, to show us the movie,
Yeah.
and I'll guess it.
When you open
So,
the door to the unknown, there's no telling who will drop in or who will drop dead.
who
Open the
will
door.
drop dead? God, I really,
Think about it like figuratively.
I don't know. Really trying to go through
Definitely
some.
not something modern. It sounds very much like an older title. It's
It sounds like very older.
yeah, it's not like Insidious or something like that.
I'll give you guys the year. It was from 1986.
God,
Damn, I don't know if that actually helped me or not. Now I'm just like sitting there like, oh wait, what came out in 1986?
I'll give you guys one choice each.
I don't know.
and
I'm
you
gonna
said
say
and
like
you said 1919 late 90s or late 80s.
1986, and Mike, don't you dare start Googling stuff. I see you left for
No,
chat.
no. I'm sorry. No. I really
You
don't
got
know.
caught, motherfucker.
I swear wait a minute. Oh shit, I didn't close it out.
I have my guess. I'm done.
I
What'd you guess, Tyler?
High spirits.
Ice spirits.
Didn't like it.
Interesting guess.
well the movie I searched for didn't pop up correctly. It came up with porno.
So Mike did.
I just
Mike did
no, I'm
search
just
it.
joking.
Yeah.
I'm just joking. I'm just joking. I really don't know. I've never heard it. I never heard it.
Any
I really
any
don't
guess
know.
at all?
I wouldn't even know.
It's
I
gonna
really
be
don't.
like a
Alright.
duh moment whenever we see it.
Yeah.
All right, so no guess for Mike. When you open the door to the unknown, there's no telling who will drop in or who will drop dead. Which board?
Never even heard of it.
Oh, it's
Ke-
it's an okay movie.
Ke-
I don't love it, but I don't hate it.
yeah, Kevin Tenney. All right, this one may be a little bit easier for you. I don't know if Mike will get this. I think Tyler might get it. It's kind of a long one here, but here we go.
Oh
Once there
God.
was a man whose prison was a chair. The man had a monkey. They made a strange pair. The monkey ruled the man. It climbed inside his head. And now, as fate would have it, one of them is dead.
The monkey shines.
God.
That's right. Tyler got it. Monkey shines.
Oh, I was about to say monkey shits, but okay. But my goodness, I was gonna say.
You
I
guys
literally
want me
like
to
sitting
do
there,
the?
I'm like, can you even consider that a tagline at that point, or is it just like a synopsis?
That's the tagline on the poster. Yeah. Do you guys want me to read the next one
Yeah,
just for
one more.
fun?
Just
Last one.
go for it.
All right. The good news is your dates are here. The bad news is they're dead.
So we can think it wouldn't be something like my boyfriend's back or something like that because we're talking about obviously it sounds like a double date kind of scenario because it's
Yeah.
dates plural. So I'm trying to think of a movie.
Mike, you
What
should
what
know
year?
this because the director of this movie also directed one of your favorite movies.
That still doesn't give me help. What year?
Let's see, 1986.
God. And say the tagline just one more time.
The good news is your dates are here. The bad news is they're dead.
Hey Siri. I'm just playing. The goodness is take here.
I don't even have a guess for this one. I really don't.
What was it? Slash? No, not Slasher High. That's not dating. I don't know. I'm
All
awful
right.
with taglines.
The correct answer, Night of the Creeps.
Oh, okay. Good movie.
All right, you guys suck at tagline trivia, so let's continue on.
Man, dude, I'm awful at
Those
taglines. Now,
the
music,
taglines are very
I'm good with it. Yeah, very wide, man. Seriously. Good for
Which I'm
anything.
not good at. I don't know what it is, but I'm not that like good at trivia to begin with.
Because honestly, the one I was putting into Google came up with porno, and I was like, that can't be it.
What did you What did you
Mike,
put
we're here to
in?
surprise you.
I'm just joking. I really didn't put anything. Like I dropped my phone down, then I turned off like my picture. I was like, well, shit.
It's
Because here
funny
I
because
am. I'm laying on my chair, and I got like the pillow up and everything, and I kind of like had it propped up, and it fell down.
it's like right
So
as soon as Mike was like, I don't know what the answer is, and then immediately the camera shut off, and Mike was like, hang on a second.
sorry. Yeah.
I was like, that motherfucker's cheating.
No, 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 no. I
Well, listen,
should have.
guys, before we actually, another thing before we get started, I think we all should give a shout out to Stephen Cognetti's new film. He's a friend of the show. He's been on before. And he has his new Hell House LLC installment, The Carmichael Manor. It comes on Shutter. Is it, I think it's October 30th, is that day?
Pretty sure. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
His trailer just dropped, and I think it definitely seems, if like you're a fan of the first, it has very similar kind of vibes. So I'm really excited to see what he does with it. It sounds like it's gonna be very interesting.
Just by watching the trailer, it gives me goosebumps for the beginning of this. I loved each film. I know we all kind of feel differently about these films. Obviously, the very first film was amazing, in my opinion. The second one was good. The third one was okay. But I feel like just from what they displayed it through the trailer, it looked really interesting and kind of frightening. So I'm all for it, and I think Stephen Cognetti is a genius when it comes to these subtle, kind of creepy horror movies. I thought he did very well, and I'm really looking forward to it. And hopefully, we can get him back on the show after this is all done.
Oh yeah, I'm absolutely down for it. Well, I mean, one thing I will say before we move on as well is I think that it's one of those films that comes along. Hello, I'll see the very first one. It's one of those films that comes along and people kind of just discover it by accident because it really had no press, nobody talking about it until it just pops up on streaming, and then people slowly kind of saw it, and then everybody collaboratively just finally was able to say, "Hey, we love this movie," and now it has an entire following. So I think it's great. It's not too
I
often that
feel
happens.
I feel like it blew up really quickly too. Like after we all kind of discovered it, and then I'm not saying we like set, but it was just quick and like a very fast pace. I saw all these horror sites and even like Facebook, social media apps. It was popping up left and right, and everybody was finding this out later.
Mhm.
And I mean, I'm glad they did finally. But I mean, this to me, it was a great trilogy. First one actually stood out the most. It was a great trilogy. Now we have this one, which is going to be very exciting.
Yeah. So I mean, guys, go back and listen to that episode because what me and Mike's talking about here, he actually mentions in the episode as well. So if you want to hear him talk more about that, he goes into a deep dive detail of how overnight he just woke up and the movie was just everywhere and how shocked he was, how shocked everybody was. So I think that truly says something about the series, and we want to congratulate him for sure. But all right, let's get down to what we've watched. I know you guys have watched Halloween too, but before we get there, I guess I'll mention one that I watched last night. It was Elevator Game. Elevator Game is a Shudder original. It was from this year, so it just came out. It's actually Rebecca McKendry, which is other podcaster. She's been in the horror kind of scene for a very long time now. She used to work for Fangoria. Now she's a professor, Dr. Professor McKendry, I should say. So a lot of I mean, she's been doing stuff for a very long time, and this is her second film that she's made. So I think it's really cool that she did step into the world of filmmaking. And it's a lot of fun. I mean, Elevator Game certainly blew up in terms of like being a creepy plot pasta. So that's how it kind of became a thing. And I think that she even mentioned it before on the show that they were on. But essentially, what it is this woman goes into an elevator. It's a social media challenge too. So she's on her phone and she goes up to like the fourth floor and then takes it back down to the second floor, takes it back up to the sixth floor, And then the 10th floor. Whenever you get to the 10th floor, there's a very specific kind of thing you have to do. You have to hit the 5th floor, and then once you hit that, you have to close your eyes. Once the door opens up, there's a urban legend that is known as like the woman on the 5th floor. And if you open your eyes, if you look at her, if you talk to her, no matter what, she'll like either A, curse you, or B, like hold you there and like kill you. Like horrible things were known to happen. No one had really done it before, so they didn't really know how it would turn out. But the entire like cold open to this was this girl going into the elevator, like pushing all the buttons. And it's kind of, I want to say it's very well done because this scene was, I should say, not the movie, but the scene overall was very well done because it did have that Hitchcockian style suspense. And I was like, I'm really down for this. I think this is gonna be great. I mean, it seemed like it was really interesting. And then it cuts, and then you see the opening credits, and from there it kind of just goes south. Here are the problems. We have a group here that is basically like a horror web show, or they have like a podcast web show or something, and they are about ready to lose a sponsorship with this company. I always call it Athletic Greens because you could tell it's trying to be like an Athletic Greens kind of like spinoff. And they're like, oh my God, we're going to lose this sponsorship and we need to do something quick. And they end up calling the sponsor themselves, and they say, what can we do to keep your sponsorship, to keep this show alive? And they're like, I need you to have a video out by next week. So they were like, what do? We need to like film a video and get it done by next week. Then they end up saying, oh, well, let's go film the elevator game that, apparently this girl died doing it. And there's a lot of weird things surrounding this building with this elevator. So let's go try it out for ourselves. That's the setup. So, you basically spend the next hour and 10 minutes watching this kind of unfold. Nothing happens. And then obviously there's like a curse at the end. There's a bunch of stuff, but essentially it doesn't work because the group themselves is using a camera from like 2007. So it has this kind of like weird kind of throwback vibe, but it seems extremely dated. And we know it's from like today because the thing is that all the people were talking about like TikTok and Instagram, and it was very much like influencer horror, but it was like made by, it seemed like, I don't know if like it was written this way or what, but it felt very just old. Like it was definitely not up with today.
Was this based on that story, that real life case of that girl that went missing in that hotel where her body was found like a week later in the water tank? Do you remember that? Like the
I
story
remember
Oh,
of this
that.
girl?
the hotel in like California or something like that, or is
Yeah,
that
where like
or on
she
Skid
had like
Row? What is it called?
yeah, where she was like she went missing and like there was creepy footage of her like on the elevator and she was like somebody was
Mhm.
following her or looking at her and she kept going out and looking in the hallway but there was nothing there and then she was never seen again and she ended up turning up in like the actual hotel water tank like supply. It was like really weird story of how everything happened and nobody figured out how she ever got there and really creepy footage. But is this based like loosely based on that?
I don't think so. I know exactly what you're talking about, but this was based off of like a creepypasta or urban legend. The urban legend I think is known as like the woman on the 5th floor. I've never read it,
Hmm.
but I just know from like the film itself and then hearing like, about the film that it was based off that urban legend. So I mean, it very well, that urban legend could have been based off of that, I guess, but the film is only exclusively based off of that urban legend.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but
Huh.
overall, I mean, like it feels a little cheap, and I understand, to be a Shutter original filmed independently, it's not going to be perfect, but these characters were extremely stale. They didn't have any kind of dimension at all to them. The way they spoke to each other was very like robotic and kind of uncomfortable. The entire time you had to like, you were basically watching a short film that had been stretched to what I felt like was like 90 minutes. And I mean, it's a 90-minute film. So just not a lot happens. It doesn't feel very authentic. The characters aren't very good. It's just kind of a mess as well.
Hmm.
Opening scenes fun. Like the first like 5 minutes of the film, like you're like, this is gonna be great, but it doesn't end up that way. So I did end up giving it a pretty low score. But aside from that, it's definitely something like if you have Shudder, I would definitely just like watch like the first 5 minutes and see how you think about it, and then kind of decide from there. Because I was hooked for a while and it didn't wear off, but I don't know. It's just whenever you have a character that's being like haunted, you kind of need to give a shit about that character to like care if they're gonna live or die. So if I didn't give a shit about any of the characters and they're very inauthentic, why would I care? You know what I mean? So the film kind of just falls there. So I definitely would say to not watch it. Chris, yeah, you're muted.
Hmm.
You hear me?
Yeah.
All
What do you
right,
do?
sorry about that,
Rip a
guys.
big one?
Yeah, that's what yeah, for the entire time Tyler was talking, like it was crazy. Um,
Something about elevator games just give me gas.
I do really want to check out the film though. I know you said it's not really worth checking out, but I'm a sucker when it comes to like
Oh, we
elevators. Like
know.
there's a movie that is called The Lift from like the
I
80s
know.
that I always really liked. There's
Yeah.
that short film called Elevated that I really, really love that I recommend anybody that's listening to check out the short film Elevated from the early 2000s, late or it might have been like late 90s. Um, I also really like Rebecca McKendry. She's really cool. She does a podcast. I listen to a lot of her podcasts she's done. She shows up on a lot of those documentaries for horror films and everything as well. Um, so I really like to check it out, not only to support that, but just because I love, I really like elevator type movies. I don't know why, but I'm interested in checking out.
I mean, like Rebecca McKendry's great. I love her to death. I did like her last film, Glorious. If you guys have watched it, it's actually really good.
I want to see it. I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah.
I
No.
don't know if I could say Elevator Games is necessarily her fault that it didn't turn out correctly. I don't know if there's probably tons of stuff that happens behind the scenes that we don't know about. So there could have been multiple factors to why it didn't turn out the way it should have. But the premise is interesting. It just felt like it was very dated for what it was. It kind of seemed like a movie that was trapped in like 2005, trying to be like forced out in 2023. And obviously technology's changed. Influencer. There's actually a movie on Shudder that came out last month called Influencer. I liked it. But it was much more like what influencers would actually do today. All right, y'all
Interesting.
talk about Halloween too.
Oh, it's it's the best of the best.
And by y'all, I mean Mike can just go on about how he likes Halloween too.
I I am a sucker for Halloween too. Um, for me, the the part that really drew me into this film is because it's more of almost kind of like you get that feel of the first person, like you're viewing it through Michael Myers' eyes. Like the creepy vibe, like the camera shot is kind of like following him in a way in the beginning, and it's really focused around him, which I loved how it immediately picked up from Halloween 1. And to me, actually, Lax and I were talking about this a few days ago. There's such an iconic scene in Halloween 2. It's in the beginning when the old lady and the man are in their house and she's fixing like a sandwich for him, and like they're watching the TV, and Michael like kind of sneaks through the side door to the kitchen, and it's this shot, this film shot, that it's like from the living room back to her into the kitchen, and Michael Myers is like standing behind her. I think that I remember. Well, I remember seeing that as maybe I think I was 9 or 10 years old at the time. I was frightened, and at almost 40 years old, I still kind of I can't take my eyes off of that. It still is kind of a bothering scene because like she has no clue that he's behind her. Here's this notorious killer, and in all of our eyes, we have to respect. I feel horror icon. He's just standing there, and to me, it's the best mask, and I feel like it's one of the best characters that or actors that played Michael Myers and Warlock. It's the way he carried himself, the way he moved, his just his overall demeanor. I thought he did very well. So I mean, Halloween 2, I could go all day about this film. The
Yeah, and you're talking,
creepiness, the
Mike,
stalker vibe.
that scene that you're talking about, it is a really creepy scene, and that old man's watching Night of the Living Dead, so it adds like atmosphere of like Halloween and everything. And then
Yeah,
it's at the beginning of the film as well. So you're talking the movie starts, it leaves off from the first night, and then immediately goes straight into that scene, which it's already creepy. You know what you're getting in for. It's going to be creepy throughout the whole thing. And it doesn't let up. It keeps going. It's actually one of the
yeah.
most action packed of the Halloween films, because the second the
Mm-hmm.
movie starts, something's happening, whether it being Michael attacking someone, killing someone, stalking someone, Donald Pleasant's character having all these different things. Like even whenever Michael isn't around, you have the scene with like Ben Tramer dressed up where he gets, the cop car runs him over and blows him up and stuff.
Yeah,
It's a lot of stuff like that. And it's just such a great movie. And
I
the
agree.
music too. I think the music is, if not,
One point.
yeah, if it's not as good as the original Halloween theme, it's very, very close. Like whenever I think of the Halloween theme, that theme is always going to be top notch, the best Halloween music ever. But that is very, very close at being just right up there, because I always think of that same type of techno music when I think of the Halloween theme. And just that doom 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 doom. Just it sounds really good.
For sure.
Yeah.
And actually, something interesting is I always listen to is how John Carpenter talks about how the only reason it turned out that way was he wanted something very like simple but kind of haunting. So he remembered that his like dad got him a set of bongo drums growing up. You hear the story? And he used to like know like what was like 5/4 time or 4/5 time. And he was able to play the bongo drums like bum 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 bum. And that's how like the bongos would be set up. And what he did was he only had 4 days to record the score for the original Halloween. So he literally just did that on the piano, but made it more like, kind of like off key. And it turned out to be absolutely horrifying. So I love that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the music. I think everything about the Halloween 2 is just. I mean, to me, it's almost perfect. I'm not gonna say it's a perfect film, but it is almost. And like what I mean about the first person, it's like God, you kind of feel like you're walking behind Michael Myers the whole time, even in the hospital when he like they're in the nursery, like he's in there kind of watching the nurses, and it's like even that part, it's you you feel like you're there, and that's one of the only Halloween films that you kind of feel like you're there. And I thought they did a very good or a very well job, a very good job on the shots from this film.
Yeah, one of my favorite things about the movie is in the opening, whenever it leads from the original film to Halloween 2, and Donald Pleasance, or Dr. Loomis, runs outside, and the next door neighbor comes out and is like, "What's going on? What's all with all this racket out here? I've been trick or treated to death." And then Dr. Loomis is like, "You don't know what death is," and just runs away. Like
That
such a
cracks me up.
classic moment. I love that scene. And then later on too. Um, Whenever he's talking to the sheriff and he's like, "I shot him 6 times, sheriff, I shot him 6 times." Like it's, I don't know, there's so many quotes from this film that just stick with you, and just you love to say them. Like anytime I hear somebody mention the word six, I think of shot him 6 times, and I have to quote him all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it also is notoriously known for like the my favorite death of all time in like the Halloween franchise has to be from Halloween 2 with the hot tub. I always think about that scene.
Yeah.
Oh,
I can't think of Halloween 2 without thinking of the like hot tub scene.
I I noticed. Okay,
I think
you,
I we're
you
going
guys
with this.
did you guys did the commentary for Halloween 2 earlier this year, around like March. And I was listening to it because I was on vacation when you all recorded this. I was listening back to it, and you guys are talking mid conversation during the hot tub scene, and all of a sudden, both of you just stop talking, and this is silence for like 15 seconds, and then Mike goes, "Oh, sorry guys." boobs.
Well, we
Pick right
had to
back
hold a
up.
moment of silence for two perfect knockers. I mean, like well-rounded, perfect nipple placement. I'm just joking. But
Oh God.
honestly, what kills me about that part, and it's a great kill too, but it's when she starts kissing and she think it's she starts kissing Michael's hand. You know his hand has to smell and taste like ass. And like she has no clue, no clue. And like, Michael kind of probably chubbed up and then he kills her. Oh my god. It's great. It's great. It's great. He got what he wanted and he killed her.
Well, I mean, desperate times call for desperate measures, Mike.
Amen. Amen, dude.
But this movie also has one of the to me one of the most cringing kills too. And I don't mean like cringe bad, like it feels painful when I see it. And that is when the security officer at the hospital goes to investigate the sounds and he's like in the storage building or whatever and he's looking around and Michael comes up behind him and hits him in the head with the hammer for like I don't know why, but man, every time he hits it, it just makes that weird like hunk sound, and it just feels
Yeah.
very painful. Like I every single time I see that movie, I cringe every time. Like, oh, that had to hurt.
Oh yeah, and I'm
Knowing,
always on the edge of my seat still to this day. It doesn't matter how many times I watch Halloween 2, that particular scene I'm always anticipating it. I'm like, when's it gonna come? When's it gonna come? Because it's just like it's in your face. It's like the most jump scare that gets.
I will say this: as
Yeah.
much as I love Halloween 2, and it is a fantastic, great movie, it also has one of the stupidest, dumbest death scenes in the entire franchise, and the the love interest of Laurie Strode, who is there helping her at the hospital, the nurse or whatever, and he goes to investigate or to see what's going on, and he walks in and sees the nurse that's been killed, and she's like bleeding out on the floor, and he steps in the blood and slips and falls, and just lays there. I guess he got a concussion, but because he goes out to the car at the end of the movie, and then he just sits there and he's like, "Ah, Glory, I'm gonna," and then he just honks the horn with his head because he dies. Like that's I don't know why, but I hate that. That's the dumbest thing ever. Like, come
D-
on with something
does
better than that.
does he die though? Does he die, or is it just kind of like he's knocked
In
out?
in that in that version, I'm assuming he's dead because A, he's never brought up
Hmm.
again. They never see him rescued. But
Right.
actually, in the TV version, I do think he survives in the TV version because he's in the. I don't
That's
know if
what
you've
I
seen the
thought.
TV
Maybe.
version.
Okay.
He's in the back
Yeah.
of the ambulance with Laurie Strode in the TV version,
That's what
but
I
in
thought.
the theatrical version, he's never seen again.
Hmm.
Let me tell
Interesting.
you all,
That's what.
TV versions confuse the hell out of me because I
Yes.
sometimes watch a movie on TV, or I used to more often, and I'm like, I would swear up and down that's how the movie was. And then I watch the film forgetting I watched it on TV with the TV version, and I would be like, wait, it was nothing like what I remember it. What the hell's going
Hmm.
on? And then I'm like, I swear to God, it ended like this. And then the TV version is something completely different
Yeah. I agree.
for sure.
Well, I watched something today actually, and I don't want to start a debate for A24 anymore, but I do want to mention that I watched a trailer for a movie coming out starring Nicolas Cage from A24, and it's called Dream Scenario.
I haven't seen it yet.
Uh, it it's actually one of the few trailers I've seen from A24 that gets me interested in seeing the movie. It's not necessarily horror as A24 usually isn't, but it's about this character played by Nicolas Cage who everybody starts having dreams about this particular person. And they confront him about it. They're like, "Hey, I had a dream about you last night." And it starts off with nothing bad, like he's just in the background of their dream. And then like as they keep dreaming over and over, like every single night, they have another dream and he's in the same dream again. But he's doing different things every time. Like he's getting more involved with the dreams. And he has no idea. Like he's just like, I don't know why this is happening to me, why people are dreaming about me, but it's I'm getting famous for it. So cool. I'll go sign people's autographs and stuff. And then I guess like all the dreams start getting more violent and he becomes like a killer and killing them in their dreams to where everybody starts fearing him and hating him because of it. So it looks really interesting, and I really want to see what they do with it because I really love Nicolas Cage, and it seems like a really cool idea.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I have to watch the trailer for sure because I love Nick Cage. I love A24. It sounds like it's gonna be interesting. Love Mandy. I love his over, and the trailer did look kind of like similar to a vibe of Mandy. So we'll see. But I have another movie I watched, and this is a movie that a lot of the listeners has probably seen because it's the biggest horror movie right now. Unfortunately, that is The Nun 2.
Oh
Now,
yeah,
has either of you guys watched The Nun, the very first one?
I've seen none of those movies.
No, sir. No.
Like, no. So The Nun 2 takes place like 4 years after the original Nun, and you could tell their budget's just getting out of hand at this point. And that's really what the film has going for it is these like amazing sets. Like it's absolutely gorgeously like dressed. And honestly, everything about the film was very crafted in a way that was tailored to like the Conjuring universe kind of style. And you could tell they had like this James Wan s kind of shots as well. Even though this James Wan had nothing to do with this film at all. But I would say it really kind of just went on the same line of the original Nun, which I did not like. And really, the set design was all I had going for it. I had a lot of issues with the pacing. It was very slow, not a lot was going on. And something that was really weird was, and this is from the trailer, so you guys might even be able to remember this. There's a scene in the trailer, there's a scene in the movie that the girl, which her name's Irene in the movie, Sister Irene, she walks up to a like a magazine wall, which my fiance was saying it was a newspaper stand. It's just a magazine wall. And it's in the middle of this like 16th century S style seminary or like, this whole like almost as a castle, the way it's set up. Walks up to this wall of like newspapers and it's just in the middle of nowhere. So there's no people around this wall of newspapers. Everything's very like old school, kind of like, 400 years old. And we have these like 1960s-esque style newspapers. I don't know. But there was just like a lot of things that was very out of place about it. The vibe was very nice though. So in terms of the graphics, like I said, it was put together very well. But overall, it's basically just a continuation of the Nun. It's 4 years later. We talk about the origins of Valak, which is the demon that was in the original Nun. Um, it really, really moves slow. I actually, whenever you guys were talking about Halloween 2, I looked up the budget because I knew it had to be high. And I'm actually reading here, it's $38 million, which for a horror movie is pretty high. Now I will say another good thing going for it besides having really great graphics, but terrible story, terrible pacing, nothing really happening throughout, and really stupid logic. A lot of logic issues, I will say. Made no sense. But at the end of it, there's a mid-credit scene. I'm gonna ruin this for you guys, but I really want to talk about it. And I think that in case you guys don't see the Nun 2 for a very long time, it'll already be run for you without having to see it. So there's a mid-credit scene, and it's actually Ed and Lorraine Warren that pops up, which they have nothing to do with the story, but it kind of sets up the Conjuring 3. And it kind of like loops the whole Conjuring universe together from like the Nun to or the Conjuring 4. Sorry, Chris. Is it we're at 3, right?
Yeah, three was the devil made me do it.
And then 2 crap.
There's
Oh,
the Conjuring two, the Conjuring, the devil made me do it.
that's what okay. Yeah. That's where I'm getting
Yeah,
confused. So yeah, so we have the fourth Conjuring film being teased. So I think that was worth seeing the movie alone. I was like, that was the one moment at the end of the film, I was like, man, this has been a waste of an hour and a half. I really like completely hated this film just as much as I hated the first one. I was like, whatever, and I was getting up to walk out, and the next thing I knew, Ed and Lorraine Warren appears on the screen, and then I immediately just went like 180 in my mood. I was like, what? Well, I'm So yeah, I mean, The Nun 2 probably would be like a 4 out of 10. The original Nun for me was probably a 4 out of 10. They're both on the same level. Nothing was scary. Chris would hate it because it's nothing but jump scares, and it's in the worst way. It's the cheapest way. And then there's something wrong with your film whenever you go to make a jump scare, which is already cheap to begin with. Which I mean, anybody's going to jump whenever something jumps out on screen with them, but they don't even carry the jump scare through. So it'll be like a jump scare. It'll be anticipating, like, oh my god, here comes a jump scare, guys. Here comes a jump scare. And they'll go to the next scene and they'll just talk. And then it'll go again. Here comes a jump scare, guys. Here comes a jump scare. Talk. And I'm like, okay. So your film's not that scary. There was only a couple scenes where like you actually even seen Valak. Probably had about 3 or 4 minutes of screen time. The other hour and 20 minutes was watching the sisters walk around and talk about how it's, things are going wrong. And then Valak would come on screen for a couple of seconds, like, oh my God, what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen? Nothing. There was an intense as
Wow.
shit moment though, where I think it was like in the first 10 minutes. Valak literally comes in and there's this like little like choir boy or like some kind of like altar boy or something, and he's downstairs, he's gathering this wine, and he comes back upstairs, and the father is standing there, and he's kind of like, oh, where were you? But he heard something is why he came up, and they turn around, and Valak is like there, and the Valak literally lifts the guy up like in the middle of like the entire cathedral, and it's kind of crazy because it's a beautiful shot. Like you can see panoramic view of this entire cathedral, and
Wow.
like casting like this like crazy like fireball toward him, and then the guy like burns to death like in the middle of the scene. Then it comes up and says the nun too. So that was a great image. I really like that, but sadly that's where it ended. It was very boring. Didn't like it.
Does it leave off for like the third, like a possibility of another one?
I think here's how the only thing it leaves off, it actually ties all loose ends at the end. But like
Mhm.
that, like I talked about that mid-credit scene, it's either leading up to The Conjuring 4, or
Gotcha.
they could, I guess, title it The Nun 3, but then have Ed and Lorraine Warren come in to investigate the nun, because it didn't really specify if it would be coming back to like see what was going on there for that reason, or if it was like The Conjuring 4. But it seemed a lot to me like it was leaning more toward like The Conjuring 4, which I'm okay with, even though The Conjuring 3 wasn't that good. I love the first two, so I
Yeah.
will definitely be there. Well, you guys could chip in with this, because I think this will be a very open discussion in terms of what the subject is. You guys already kind of know a preview because I was really mad after I watched it. I'm going to talk about August Underground. A lot of people maybe
Okay.
listening to this kind of scratching their head, like, what the hell is August Underground? Because it's definitely one of those films that's not mainstream. It's kind of like a sheltered horror. It was very out of print for a long time. Um, I think it was like hundreds of dollars for the DVD. It recently got re-released on Blu-ray, and I've heard nothing but people talk about how sought after these films are, and how much like how hard it is to come across a copy because they always go offline because it's so intense. And I'm like, okay, I'm not one that's watched a Serbian film. I've seen Murders. I've seen like films like Thirst. I've seen all the French extremity films I've seen. But then I put on August Underground, out of curiosity, because I'm like, how bad could this film be if it's been, re-released and it's on Blu-ray and people are talking about it. And I just really didn't see. I know it's supposed to be. I should set this up first. So it's supposed to be a snuff film. Snuff films more like the violence and horror side of it's kind of more towards like realism. So
Yeah, it was
stuff.
from what the director says, Fred Vogel, it was never intended to be anticipated as a movie. It was only supposed to be made as a snuff film. Like he actually went out in the production after the movie was made. He copied everything to VHS tapes. Um, he went through and left them at just random places. He would leave them in subways. He would leave them in like go and take them to people's houses, just drop them off on the doorsteps that people would discover these and think that they are watching a legit snuff movie. That's what he wanted. There was no intention to ever be like, hey, I have a movie. I'm going to go promote my movie. This is it. Like it was never intended that way.
That's
What
wild.
about the second and the
I did not know that.
Second and the third one are a little different, I think, but the first one was always made to be a legit, to make it look like a legit snuff movie.
Hmm.
So I've heard of. I mean, I've heard of him talking about that before. I mean, I didn't know that he didn't want it seen by people in terms of like being a film, like actually like being shown. I thought that was more like a promotional thing.
Yeah,
But
like he
now
didn't
that
have it showed at like festivals or anything like that. It wasn't one of those things. It was he wanted you to just discover the movie, just find it and think that it's a real
Hmm.
thing that you've watched by accident.
well, to me, after I watched it, there was no redeeming factors at all. Now, keep in mind, this was probably not made for me. And after you made that comment there, it reminds me maybe that we can't really even talk about the story or criticize like anything like that because there really wasn't any story to it at all. It was mostly just scenes of very drawn out torture. But I guess it kind of like I kind of was questioning myself. I turned it off and I'm like, okay, people who watch this claim to be horror fans. Like it's made and like people are like, oh, it's the most disturbing. It was like part of the most disturbing films iceberg. And there was like these films that start out as high up as like It and the Babadook, and then goes
Oh yeah.
down to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and then it goes down to more, and then it just gets deeper and deeper in the iceberg. And then August Underground's obviously toward the bottom. So I'm like, this is probably going to be the most disturbing horror movie ever. And it's very much marketed towards horror fans, but I can't say it's horror. And I don't understand why people would kind of group that, I guess you would say, as horror fans into saying, oh, I this is like a sought after horror film that I want to watch. So it's kind of like wanting to get your guys' opinion on this too, because as a horror fan, and I've loved horror since I've been like 6 or 7 years old, discovering it by myself. I personally could not consider this horror. I don't consider something that goes along the lines of torture, but no storyline to be for horror fans. I think it's made for a completely different demographic. I'm not sure what that demographic is or what their mental state's like, but it's definitely not something that I would want to associate with being horror. You know what I mean?
I agree.
Yeah, I get what you're
I'm not.
saying.
I'm yeah.
I've never seen it. I've always wanted to see it just to see like what he does with it because I've heard interviews with him talking about it and everything. And that's just always been a curiosity of mine. But when it comes to like, am I interested in watching the movie? I don't care if I really ever see it or not. At one point in time, I was trying to just own every horror film I could possibly think of. So I did try to find it, but from where it was out of print and you had to spend so much money for it, I never did pick it up. So I never did get a chance to watch it. I'm not a fan of those type of movies. I don't care for the snuff look of movies, or I think
Yeah.
it's weird whenever somebody when their favorite movie when they're like, oh man, that's one of my favorite horror movies ever made is August Underground or any of those stuff like the Faces of Death movies and all these. I don't understand it. I don't see what the rewatchability or what the point of liking those type of movies would be necessarily. That's just me though. But I mean, I guess there's something for everyone. Like you said, the Serbian movie, I have no interest in ever watching that ever in my life. I care less about it. I don't care if it pops up on people's must-watch lists or anything. That's not for me. So
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
No,
that's
yeah.
the
I'll
reason I
piggyback off
watched it
that.
was because it was so hard to find, and it just recently came back into print. So I'm like, it's either now or never kind of thing. And it was kind of weird because I was like in a good mood about it. I was like, I'm gonna put this on. I'm gonna watch it. This is great. I can't wait. And then the moment like it starts, I'm like, this isn't what I signed up for. So I started like skipping through and just like stopping it throughout. I probably watched like 35 minutes of screen time. And then it gets to the end, and I don't even like watch the last 10 minutes of it. And I'm like, that was enough for me. I know exactly what it is.
yeah, apparently part two and three takes like each one takes a step further of what is acceptable for what you're seeing. Like you think what happens in the first movie is all these horrible, explicit things that you're seeing, and then part two goes one step beyond, and then
Yeah.
part three goes one step beyond part two, to where you start questioning whether or not this person is like legitimately like insane doing this stuff. Um, and I've also heard him, and don't quote me for word on this, but apparently, like listening to stories of his, it was like banned in a lot of countries, but I want to say there was like it was banned in Canada, and he
Yeah.
was doing a festival or something over in Canada, and he had a bunch of copies of it in his car. So whenever he traveled from US to Canada, he got stopped at the, midway or at the crossing point, and they searched his vehicle. And when they found the copies of him, they confiscated the copies of him and they arrested him. And he was in jail, like he had to spend a couple days in jail or something like that because he had forbidden material or something like that over in Canada.
That's hilarious
Hmm.
though. I was like,
Wow.
they're not gonna let that come over there. No, it is
Yeah, they were
banned
like,
in like 48
No contraband."
countries. Get your stuff from out of our country. But no, I mean, like it is very realistic. I mean, I guess you may be able to applaud the acting. That's if you want to say something about it. Like, it was pretty, it seemed pretty real. So, I mean,
Hmm.
it's something that I would not recommend though. And it's kind of weird
Yeah.
because I mentioned August Underground, didn't really care for it at all. The Nun 2, didn't really care for it. Elevator Game, didn't really care for it. So I know I'm negative Nancy today,
You
but
had a bad week of movie watching, didn't
I
you?
know.
Yeah.
But I mean, if I
Uh,
did recommend one, I think that people will have fun with Elevator Game out of all those. Definitely don't watch August Underground. But The Nun 2, it was nice to look at. It was kind of cool to see horror get a big budget. But overall, Elevator Game was probably the only one that I could even remotely suggest, and I didn't really care for it either. So that's my hot takes for the
will do.
day. All right, guys. Well, we'll take a quick break and we will come back for some Carpenter.
Excuse me,
Oh,
Laurie.
Mr. Brackett, I'm sorry, Mr. Brackett.
Oh, I didn't mean to startle you.
That's all right.
You know, it's Halloween. I guess everyone's entitled to one good scare, huh?
Welcome back. Now we're ready to talk about our movies this week. So I will go first with Halloween, the original 1978. So if you haven't seen this film, get out of under the rock you're living. So you need to watch this. So Halloween, John Carpenter, I think it's the most iconic slasher film in my opinion. This is what drove me to fall in love with horror movies in general. It really got me excited about scary movies. I remember being 7 or 8 years old when I first saw this with my father on TV, and it frightened the living shit out of me. It was just, I think, the overall presence of how the character Michael Myers was presented, dark, kind of stalkerish, um, slow, nothing fast paced, but overpowering strong that just caught my attention even at a young age. And now being even older, growing up and watching this, it's still the same for me. So when I think slasher, I think the king of slasher, I think Michael Myers. And Halloween, the original 1978, does it for me. It's set in Haddonfield, Illinois, and the story of Halloween begins the night in 1963, where we witness. It started out with Michael Myers being young, stabbing his younger sister to death with a kitchen knife.
Older sister.
Basically opening scene. I'm sorry, our older sister. Basically opening scene. And I mean, I tell you what, if you're going to get it wrong, Lex is going to call you out. But
This is supposed to be
older
one of your
sister.
favorite movies, Mike.
Older sister. Sorry, my bad. Older sister. And then the plot just jumps. Like the movie just jumps. What, like 15 years? Quick span. Where Myers has grown. He remains silent, and he's placed in a mental hospital where he was confined. But soon he escapes from the facility, and he finds a way to go back to his hometown to kill some more.
How does he learn to drive his car?
How does people learn to write? Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. Yeah, that definitely was left out.
He's a great driver, honestly. Like he can do some crazy ass stuff.
He is. He
It's
stops
crazy.
stop signs and red lights and everything.
He
Like
can do some tricks with it. Like he can do some whips.
And I truly believe Halloween is probably one of John Carpenter's greatest, finest works of his career. In my opinion, I think that's what has made it for John Carpenter. Now, I could argue with me on this, but I think with just Halloween in general, it's really boosted him at the top front runner of horror icons as a producer, as a writer. But I truly believe that. And Halloween, the original Halloween will do that. From
do you guys
Jamie,
do you guys think that the the story or the rumor that he got the idea to make Halloween from Bob Clark, who, directed Black Christmas. I don't know if you've heard about it, Mike, but there's a rumor that he had a chat with Bob Clark, and he was talking about making like holiday slasher films, and he said it would be a lot better if they made one that took place on Halloween. And then Carpenter made Halloween like the next year. Do you guys believe that rumor?
I don't think so. I think that
Carpenter
I don't. Yeah, I
claims
don't know.
I say Carpenter claims that he came up with the idea all by himself.
so.
I
Well,
don't
first of all,
know.
I think it is important that we cover this film because, as you know, when everybody thinks of like horror, it's like, oh, Halloween, obviously everybody's gonna cover it, but I think it often gets like overshadowed, and for these reasons as well, Chris. Is I think that people aren't really talking about the fan theories and kind of like the legacy that it left. But I mean, definitely, I think that what the way I understand it, here's the narrative I believe. I believe that John Carpenter was a young director and he was on fire at the time. Like he had just made Dark Star, turned around, made Salt on Precinct 13. Both of them didn't do very well, but they at least got his name out there. And when you're a young director, I know now he's like kind of like an old grumpy man that doesn't like talking about any of his past works because he doesn't love the horror industry. But in order to be burned out at one time, you had to be on fire, right? You had to be like really in love with what you did. So for me, I feel like John Carpenter really just poured himself into this project because it was at a time that he was given this opportunity. So I don't think that anybody necessarily gave him that idea. I feel like he was approached by his story, if I remember correctly. It's been I remember I've heard this story, I don't know where I got it from, but I could swear I heard John Carpenter say that. How did he say it? It was like he got the idea from a distributor or like a production company, which was owned by like Deborah Hill and people like some of like they were like all part of this production company, and they approached him with this like idea to make this like babysitter style murder kind of like slasher film, but it wasn't called slasher obviously because it didn't exist at the time. It was new, and they basically just went with it from there. And then they ended up calling it Halloween because it just sounded like a better title. It had not been used before, so I don't
Yeah, it
think
was originally titled The Babysitter Murders, right?
the I think it was the babysitter
Mhm.
killer.
Babysitter Killer.
Killer,
I
I
thought it
think.
was
Yeah.
Babysitter Murder. Killer. Okay.
Maybe it was murder. Should we look? I could check to make sure if you guys want to.
But yeah, Halloween has always been one of those that it plays on the holiday itself. So you're going to have a profit if every single Halloween they're going to play your movie because it's called Halloween. Nobody's going to make another movie for the rest of eternity called Halloween because they're just
Yeah.
not going to do it. It's not copyright. You can't copyright a holiday or anything. So,
Right.
like, if somebody wanted to, they could make a movie called Halloween, but nobody's going to even try to do that ever. But
I mean, they could try, but they'll never live up to the expectations of what the iconic Michael Myers, because they can come out with creatures, they can come out with killers, but the big thing that separates Michael Myers is just the overall, like, Michael Myers is faceless. Like
Mm,
the unknown, because the fear comes from the unknown, and that's what scary about Michael Myers. You know, it's a white mask. It's not a scary white mask, but it's a white mask. It's like, what's under it? You don't know what's under it. What type of person is he? Like, so that's like more bone chilling than the fear of like knowing who's under the mask is not knowing. And it's the unpredictable, like how unpredictable Michael Myers is. We know
yeah,
he's evil, but and then we know he's I mean, freakishly strong, but it's that slow pace. It's never that he tries to overdo anything. He's always kind of a calm killer. He doesn't try to overdo anything. And that's like, to me, it's just like it's his natural habit. Like, it's just like, standing up after sitting down. It's just his natural way of living is killing. And to me, when I think of Michael Myers, I just think of faceless, unknown, powerful. bone chilling, creepy. I don't really know how else to put it because he's simple. He's simple, but he's scary. And like to me, you have like Ghostface, which is I mean, in Scream, love it, but you kind of know it's going to be like a somebody that's been pissed off in another movie. You kind of there's possible leads who you may know, but with Michael Myers, it's you don't really get a full story though. He just went crazy. He just kind of snapped when he was younger, and that's it. And then it
Yeah,
just goes
and
on. Now,
Donald, uh, Dr. Loomis, character played by Donald Pleasance, does a great job explaining the reason behind everything with simple context of just saying he's just pure evil. It's there's
yeah,
nothing,
simple.
there's nothing to say why he does it. It's just
Yeah,
why did Michael Myers do this? Because it's pure evil.
and that's what I love about this character in this film. There's nothing else to it. He's just born evil. He's pure evil. Like you can't look at him in the eyes and think there's a man behind that mask because there's not. It's just it's evilness, and that simplicity is sometimes the scariest. And for Michael Myers, he is simple and it's frightening.
Yeah. And with this movie though, from the get-go, the second the movie starts, it has that theme, the Halloween
Mm-hmm.
theme that everybody loves and knows. Like you could play that in your mind all day long. It never gets old. I listen to that theme all the time. But it's the second the movie starts, that theme plays. It's like the most iconic thing, and it's right off the bat. So
Yeah,
you already are invested because the music is just so, it's a creepy music. It really is. It sets the tone, it sets the atmosphere itself without having anything shown. And then you have that pumpkin and everything on there as well. But the music is just as iconic as the character is, in my opinion.
hands down, iconic. I mean, you hear that song, oh well, that's Michael Myers. That's his music. It's not Halloween's theme music. That's Michael Myers music. It's like that's what you think of.
Yeah,
Yes.
well, the whole entire score is because even the music they have for Laurie Strode's character when she's everywhere, you have the
Hmm.
ding, 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 like that whole soft tone music is there as well. And then this, even whenever like the stalking of Michael Myers, when he stalks somebody, you hear like instead of hearing the Halloween theme, you hear like the dun, 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 ding, 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 like you hear that, and it's just that's just as iconic as well, I think. Like it's all different
Yeah,
scores, but it's
I mean,
all
arguably,
really,
yeah,
really intriguing. Like I think this is one of the best movies that has like the score placement. Like every single segment that the music is placed at is perfect timing for it as well.
yeah, yeah. I agree. And for such a low budget film as well. I mean, this was low budget when it was first made. So like done very well with the money they had and you know what they worked with. I thought they knocked it out of the ballpark. And like I said, I would assume 90% of everyone have seen this movie, but just to me in general, this is by far my favorite horror icon, by far my favorite horror franchise. Um, and it's in the first two, John Carpenter, Halloween '78, and then obviously Halloween 2 is the top of the top for when I think about horror movies. Um, but yeah, I mean, if you guys have any more input on this, let me know.
What would
Yeah,
you say?
and
Go ahead, Chris. Sorry.
I was going to say this movie has some really good moments of quotes too. Like we were talking earlier with Halloween 2, how there were certain quotes you could always remember from the film. This one has those as well, with the scene where Laurie Strode meets the sheriff while they're walking down the street, and he said, bumps into her. Sorry to scare you. He's like, it's Halloween. I guess everybody's entitled for one good scare. That's
Mm.
a really classic moment. It's very well written, really cool. Um, and then, they used that later on whenever Halloween H2O came out as well, references back. Um, but yeah, the whole Dr. Loomis talking about Michael Myers, like, he's got the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes. Like just certain quotes from this movie are always gonna stick with me for forever. I don't think I'll ever forget anything from this movie, really.
I want to say though that the reason I feel like people love this film so much, because if you look at it, I mean, I love it. I want to say that first. But you look at this film and it is an incredibly simple plot. There's nothing really to it at all. But if you look into it, there's two things that this film did first before any other film really truly did before. Um, Birth of the Slasher, and that is with Michael Myers being the main character. He is the anti-character. Like he doesn't, there's nothing really, he has a backstory, but he doesn't say anything in the, in the entire movie. He's just a force of evil, as Mike mentioned before, and that's something that had not really been done in film before that. So that was something that really kind of, I feel like, was capturing to the audience. But then also, if you look back, I remember there's this famous, extremely famous interview with Ebert and Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert. And the way they review Halloween, I've always loved, because at the very end of it, this is before anything. This is before the 80s slasher boom, which happened exclusively because Halloween was released. This was before, we got the parodies like Scream, all this stuff. So this is way back before slashers even were a thing. They looked and they said, we love Halloween. 1978, this was recorded too. They said that it was absolutely amazing to see, because there was actually a female that was able to take the lead in this film and was able to face her fears and to be able to challenge that and come out at the very end kind of on top in a way. And they had not seen that really in a horror movie before. So we have the birth of the final girl. There had been women in horror, but not women in horror that was kind of the way that Halloween said it. And now what, we have 12, 13 Halloween films. Looking back at it, the Laurie Strode legacy just now ended, and it's been 40 plus years now at this point. So it's crazy
Yeah.
to be back in 1978 before Halloween, after Halloween literally was shrouded by no one even wanting to see it. They're like, what the hell is Halloween? We don't have any interest in this. And to
I
know,
never really cared for Jamie Lee Curtis in this movie. I don't think she like you could take that character and replace it with any actress at that time, and I don't think it would have changed anything.
but look at where the point I'm trying to make with it is look at how it started something. Like all the
Yeah,
film,
the character, yes. I'm just talking about like the actress itself. Like I
right.
never really cared for her in that role. Like you could really put any other actress playing Laurie Strode, and I think it would still have the same effect as it does today.
Well, I mean,
I
yeah, you
think the
can
only
definitely cast some
the
other.
only thing that's different is because she became so famous. That's why she's tied so well to this movie. I think is because horror fans they want that popularity in modern movies and modern cinema and stuff that like the Oscars and stuff. They hate horror films, right? But we can hold on saying, well, we have somebody who's one of the most popular actresses of all time, and she's in this franchise. But I don't know. I just wanted to throw that out there. I never really cared for her in this movie. Like I don't know. She doesn't really say much either. It's just a little bit of
Mm.
random stuff here and there.
Well, I mean, yeah, but also looking at it, I mean, I could somewhat see other people in the role as well, but if you think about it, it was only like what, a $300,000 film at the time, and in that time, obviously, it was more money than today, but it still was like, maybe like what, $1 million, if that. So this was an extremely independent film. So I feel like maybe they were. I think they cast Jamie Lee Curtis based off of they Psycho. I think wasn't it
Yeah,
was like Psycho was
J-
originally a film that drew a lot of inspiration for Halloween, so they made the
yeah,
connection. Well, let's
Janet Leigh.
let's
Yeah,
cast, let's cast the daughter now, kind of thing. And I think that's kind of like why they chose Jamie Lee Curtis to begin with. I mean, take it or leave it, though. I think that it's more so not even Jamie Lee Curtis. I think it's more just what that character did for cinema. And to know that, like I said, 40 years in the making, and they still were kind of battling it out all the way up until what, last year, and it just now ended for them. So I think it's why I love Halloween. I think that's why a lot of people love Halloween, because it's not one of those films it was an independent film that had no business being popular. and then it turned out to make like, 50, 60, 70 million dollars, and it's been re-released over and over and over again, and people still talk about it today. So it's more of like a legacy. Like we have Halloween, which is an incredibly simple film that was never going to be successful or seen again, and they were done with it. They were like, we're going to make Halloween and move on to something else. And John Carpenter was completely fine with that. He was ready to make something else. But that one film could stand out and inspire an entire generation of not only subgenre of horror, which being the slasher film, but it also could turn around and inspire future filmmakers. It's going to inspire future horror fans. For a lot of people, it's their first horror movie. The mask, which was just a simple William Shatner mask, is now one of the most iconic masks, right up next to Ghostface. So we have all of these like crazy horror first, and we have all these like things that's really taken the film 45 years later and still is relevant today. And like I said, it's so simple and so easy to watch, but it's also saying so much without even having to say it.
Yeah,
So I
I
think that's
agree,
why
100%.
Halloween is the way it is today.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is I know it has the same title as the holiday, but it really is the essence of the holiday. It's the essence of Halloween. It puts the atmosphere. It makes you feel like it is the day of Halloween, no matter when you watch it. It feels
hmm
like that fall time, no matter when you watch it. And the music is right there with you as well. That helps out a lot. But you can watch it any time of the year and just get that Halloween, fall feeling. And I love that
yeah,
about this.
I agree. I agree 100 million% on this. I guess I'll give my rating. To me, when I think of Halloween, and I know I talk about Halloween 2 as well, but Halloween 1 and 2 both, I mean, they're both each a 10 out of 10 for me. Um, there's not much that would change to this. I mean, even the movie's older now. I still really enjoy watching it. I don't get bored with it, and I get excited about when it does come on TV for like as we are approaching Halloween. And even if if it's not around Halloween time, I still really enjoy putting the streaming it, putting the old DVD in, or I mean, I get excited on watching it. It's the best, and to me, it's a 10 out of 10.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm right there behind you. I mean, have to give it a 10 out of 10. I mean, there's no other score you could really give it. I mean, it's just flat out a masterpiece for what it's accomplished in the horror community. And it's something that continues to live on today. I'm sure it will live on in the future.
Agree, man.
Yeah, with just the feeling and the atmosphere that it provides, the legacy it's had, the characters it's created, like Donald Pleasant's character as Dr. Loomis is one of the all-time best characters in horror movie history. Um,
Absolutely.
and I don't know if you guys know this either, but Robert Englund, who played Freddy Krueger, was actually on set of making of Halloween, and he apparently, I don't know how truthful this is, but he worked on as like an extra on set where he was like cleaning up all the leaves that had blown down the street and was moving them back to the areas where they were filming so they could make it look more like fall time because where they filmed it at wasn't really a place where that looks like that suburban area and stuff. So apparently Robert Englund had worked on the film, which is kind of cool as well. But
That's really
all in all, with the music, the quotes that comes from the film, it's everything about it. Even though you can pick out some things like how did Michael Myers be able to drive? At the end of the movie, there's a scene where when he shoots Michael, when Dr. Loomis shoots Michael. In the second one, he claims he shoots him 6 times, but he actually shoots him 7. There's little things like that you could pick apart. But the movie is always going to be a classic. It's always going to be on the top of everybody's list
never
for
was good at
slashers.
math.
Yeah. Um, but I love this movie. I think I can watch it at any time and still enjoy it. And I can watch it multiple times in a row and still enjoy it.
Yeah,
It's a 10 out of 10 for me as well.
Oh my gosh. I mean, there's no other score that we could give it. I mean, I'm glad that it got a 30 out of 30 because being horror fans, I mean, like we owe it to
yeah,
Halloween. And not only I think that, Halloween, you'd be like, oh, well, it's a 6 or 7 as a film, but overall, if you add all the extra stuff that's done for the horror community past that and all the films that it inspired, it gets an extra point for this, an extra point for that, and you get a 10. I mean, you get a 15 if you could.
Yeah.
Some reading material. If anybody's interested, because I actually read this a couple years back and I just remembered it as we're recording this. There's a book called Taking Shape, Developing Halloween from Script to Screen. It came out just 2 or 3 years ago. It is fantastic. It has a lot of really nice insight to the mythology. It also does talk a lot about the process of pre-production all the way through shooting to development and post-production and the legacy that we've been talking about so much. So definitely, if you are a Scream fan, not a Scream fan, I don't know why I said that, but if you are a Halloween fan, definitely grab that. What do you
Yeah.
got there, Chris?
So I don't remember where I got this from, but it's called Rewind, and it's a special Halloween edition magazine, and it literally states like all the different interviews and stuff with different cast and crew throughout the films. It's got toys and everything, all the different merchandise and stuff they've ever came out with, as well as listed in here with a big article. Interviews for the new movies, whenever obviously when it was coming out. This was says Halloween Kills on the back of it, so it came out around the time that Halloween Kills came out. It says TV Guide Magazine Special, so I'm guessing it was made by TV Guide Company.
Yeah.
So this is really cool. I read a little bit of articles in here, some of the interviews with cast and crews of different Halloween films. If you guys get a chance to pick that up, I mean, it's something that's, just turn a page and read something off of it, and every once in a while, and learn something new about Halloween. So it's kind of cool.
Well, I love stuff like that.
Sure.
There's also no, we can talk about this all night at this point. Just talk about John Carpenter's Halloween books because there's tons.
Oh yeah.
But there's one also if you're into coffee table books, it's called John Carpenter like photographs or on photographs or something. And if you look through it, it's actually really interesting because it talks about John Carpenter's inspirations as a director throughout his entire career. But also it has a lot of Halloween in there. And there's a lot of like really rare photos from each of the sets. And in the Halloween one, like you could see on one of the images where John Carpenter smoke, like he's smoking a cigarette and they're filming. You can see the frame to where you can see that cigarette smoke come up next to it, which is really cool. And they also like point out the palm trees and like, oh, why can we see palm trees if this is in the middle of Illinois kind of thing. And it's just there's 3 palm trees that's showed. So I think it's really interesting to see that in that book. Definitely check it out if you're into like photos and John Carpenter and his entire like filmography. That's a great one too.
Nice.
But reading material aside, John Carpenter obviously after Halloween became extremely mainstream. I mean, Halloween did way better than what they thought it was going to do. And as the legacy built from that, he never really wanted to be a horror director. So what did he decide to do? He ended up taking a job on a film called The Thing.
I know you gentlemen have been through a lot. And when you find the time, I'd rather not spend the rest of this winter tied to this fucking couch!
And The Thing was meant to be kind of the anti-Halloween because at this point, he had already raked in so much like brownie points from producing such a film like Halloween, and he had become a producer by this point too. So there's so much going for him at the by the time he was making The Thing. So it was really meant to be his first kind of big budget blockbuster summertime style film. And it's kind of funny to say summertime too because it's in Antarctica. But I mean, this film is huge compared to Halloween, and it's crazy to even know that the same director made Halloween from The Thing. So to set this up, and I'm sure. Sorry, go ahead, Chris.
I was gonna say, if you caught this in the original Halloween, one of the movies that's playing on TV that the kids are watching is the original thing that this movie is based from.
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up. That's a good catch there too, and I think it's great. I love that, and I love the Howard Hawks adaptation as well, which is the adaptation they were watching. But this was actually based off of a book. It's actually a novella, and it's called "Who Goes There" by John Campbell Jr. People really love this novella, And that's why it's been adapted so many times. I personally have never read it. It's definitely on my list. I don't know why I haven't read it yet. I just haven't gotten around to it. But this is what it's adapted from. Howard Hawks originally did it. John Carpenter got in on it as well. Bill Lancaster did the screenplay for The Thing, so they kind of worked in conjunction together. It was a huge studio film produced by Universal Pictures, and pretty much the setup that you need to know about this is basically a research, it's like a researcher kind of facility in the middle of Antarctica, and literally what happens is they come across like a spacecraft kind of thing, and they come across a body, and like some weird stuff starts happening, and they find out that it has human organs on the inside, but it looks very inhuman. So one by one, cherry pick, throughout the whole entire movie, we're kind of left in Hitchcockian style suspense of, you know, who has it, who is going to inherit the thing kind of thing. So that's pretty much the setup of this entire movie. It's very simple but very rich. It's beautifully shot. Ennio Morricone did the score, and I absolutely love the guy's work. He's done so many different movies. So the score is fantastic. It's kind of weird though, because obviously we're used to John Carpenter, doing his own thing with his music, but we don't get that in this film. But it works great. I mean, I think the Ennio Morricone was a great substitute for that. And obviously, I mean, Kurt Russell, being the main star in this is, he's my favorite character. Man, Windows is great too. Like, there's a couple people, but
All the people are really good. Like
yeah, they're
it's got some
great.
really good actors. Like Wilford Brimley is in this movie,
He is, yes. I mean,
and I think this time he's in this movie without diabetes.
or was there like a granola commercial he was in too or something? He's so known for commercials at this point. But Keith David did great as well. So we have some great actors. But Kurt Russell, something about his character cracks me up. I specifically, to kind of skip ahead and get into the specifics of the film, at the very opening scene, it cracks me up so much because he's sitting there just drinking a scotch, hanging out at this research base, and he's trying to play a game of like chess with the computer, and the computer is like playing him back, and he's like, he thinks he's gonna win, and he's like, oh my, my girl needs to brush up on her skills or something, and like she like makes a move, and she's like, checkmate, and whenever he does that, she's a lion bitch or something like that. And then he like picks up his like scotch and pours it in her to like mess up the whole entire computer system. So like immediately we like get to know his character, and we see that he's just kind of like this like go lucky kind of guy, super like chill, but also a little bit off. And I think that's his character. Like, to have a flamethrower and to go after this crazy alien-like creature that like turned into a dog and say, "Where's my flamethrower?" kind of thing. You kind of have to be like that with that character, and it's funny, it's scary. Another scene I'll point out before I turn it over to you guys is there's a blood test scene where they all take a blood sample, and you want to talk about Hitchcockian suspense. That is so intense. Every single time I watch it, I'm on the edge of my seat, just waiting for something to happen, because it's just one by one. He like cherry picks each person and says, slit your finger, let's get a sample. And they're like, oh, this is bullshit. Why are we doing this for? Nothing's gonna happen. What the hell? You know what you're talking about. And he like tests them, and he's like, I swear to God, we find out that he ends up murdering somebody by accident, and he wasn't even an alien. So he kind of turns into the asshole at that moment, but at the same time, you're like, I love this character, even though he is an asshole. But then you're also kind of on the edge of your seat because you don't know what's going to happen next. And then when you do find out what happens next, it's the best scene of the movie. I mean, start flaring everywhere.
It is one. Yeah, I think it is the best scene in the entire movie. And you're talking about being on the edge of your seat, even watching it multiple times. I forget how many tests he does before the thing comes out. So like I'm watching it, I'm thinking to myself, oh, it's the second one. He does it twice and the thing comes out. And then he does it twice and it's not the thing that comes out. And it's like, well, I don't know when he does it. And then all of a sudden the third one comes out. And then he keeps doing more. But I keep forgetting it every time I've watched it. And it catches me off guard each time.
It's the best.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
And another thing about this film, like it takes off fast. Like it there's no it, there's not much of a slow area in this film. It's pretty fast paced, and I think what I truly love about this is there's not like CGI. It's all practical effects, so like it's really cool, um, and it's funny. I'm not going to say it's a comedy by in any means, but there is some comedy mixed in with this. I feel, and it just all plays together very well. Like Kurt Russell, I thought just played a fantastic part in this film, and I really don't think they could have gotten anybody better to play this role that would have done as good as he did. Um, and the gore, the effects are, I think, absolutely amazing.
I definitely want to touch on the
Messy, like
effects too, Mike. So I'm going to join you.
yeah, like oh yeah, and like it's messy, it's realistic looking. It's not
It's
fake.
goopy.
It's goopy. It's
Very good.
yucky, moist looking. I'm just, but and I thought the effects were just absolutely top notch, like two thumbs up. And I mean, I'm a huge fan of this, Tyler. I'm glad you picked this because I haven't seen it for so long, and I really enjoyed rewatching this.
Yeah, Tyler, the effects was done by it was Rob Bottin, right?
That's what I was about to say. It's Rob Bottin doing the effects. I
Yeah.
wanted to make sure I was right
And
on that because I kind of
it,
forgot. I just looked it
he
up to make
just
sure.
about killed himself, didn't he? Like he worked so hard on this movie that like he didn't want to do anything else after this because he about killed himself like working so hard.
Yeah, oh yeah, he definitely did. And if you look at those creature effects, I mean, especially the one where they're doing like somebody has a heart attack, who I forgot which character crap has a heart attack
Hmm.
and they're trying to defibrillate them. And as
Yep.
soon as they like push in, as a copper, I think, defibrillates them. And like next thing you know, like just alien style, directly the thing comes out. And I think it's bonkers. And like Mike said, it's funny, but it's funny in a way that's terrifying. And it's funny in a way
Yes.
that you can't look away, but you're like, do I laugh? Do I freak out? And that's something that makes the thing very scary. Because if
Yeah,
you
it's funny. It's funny because of how absurd it
yes,
is. Like how absurd the effects are, and but they're not done cheesy. They're done really well. Like they look
mhm.
and they move like they're real things. And I love everything about the effects in this movie.
I mean, Botine had
It's
the
almost like it. Oh no,
go
go
ahead,
ahead.
sorry, Mike.
No, no, no. It's almost to the point where it's funny. Like you're like, oh shit, that's real. Like that type of deal. Like it's that kind of comedy. You're like, oh, like I kind of giggle, and then I'm like, holy shit, that really looks real. Wait a minute, that really looks good. The effects are fucking awesome. So it's that type of like being funny. I don't mean like a comedy horror mix. It's not that by any means, but you're just like kind of scared, but you got to laugh, and then
It's
you're scared
absurd.
again. So that's the yes,
That's a
perfect.
good
Yep,
word.
yep.
Yeah, and you know how like we were talking about when we watched Halloween that no matter when you watch the movie, you can get the feeling of Halloween time.
Hmm.
This movie has like a weird effect with it too, where because takes place in Antarctica and the
I'm always
sound
cold.
design and the blue light
Hmm.
filter, anytime you watch it, you're cold. Yeah, it's
Hmm.
strange. Like you feel cold just by watching this movie.
Yep.
Well, I mean, his set design. Look at if you actually watch the backgrounds as well, you'll see the ice on the insides of all the inside of the buildings. So they were so meticulous and so careful with the set. On the outside, obviously, it feels cold because of Antarctica. But on the inside, as they're walking around, look at the backgrounds because you'll see on the walls, on the doors, they're all iced. Everything has like this like layer of frost on it. So it was down to just like the smallest detail, saying like, they are in Antarctica. It's probably like what, negative 30, 40 degrees. Therefore, on the inside, there's probably going to be some frost from the outside carrying in like condensation wise. So I think that they really thought that out very well. Um,
I agree.
I think that the effects also complement that. So I think it was definitely half set designer mixed with the practical effects because the practical effects kind of gives you that horror sense. And you almost feel like, am I going to get contaminated watching this? It's kind of like what it is. So the thing, I guess you would say modern day would be like It Follows. And I actually got to see It Follows in theaters when it came out. And I know a lot of people felt like It Follows was scary because it seemed almost as if you didn't know if you were going to get that next. Like you almost become so encapsulated in this idea of something like something stalking you, something following you, that you get almost like scared in the theater. And that's what makes you scared. I think the same thing happens
Yeah.
with the thing. I think especially if like you're really into this film and you're really watching it and it's clicking for you, what's gonna happen is you're gonna break the fourth wall. And what makes it so scary is you feel like the thing is coming for you. Like you feel like it's going to happen. And as absurd as the film is in that moment, that still becomes something that's very real. Go back to Carpenter with Halloween. What makes that film so effective is the fact that you don't know if Michael Myers could he be real? Like it feels like he is almost after you. Something about Carpenter's films, especially when it does things like the thing's doing here or like Halloween's doing, he almost breaks that fourth wall and you become a character in his movie. And I think that the thing really amplifies this even past any of his other films in his filmography. There's something about it that while it's still sloppy, it definitely is. Like it's not a perfect film, but the fact that the flaws are there in this like goopy for Chris, in this kind of like goopy setting, in the past that John Carpenter had before this making Halloween and the legacy of that, and then coming on with this all-star cast, this huge fucking cast that's just killing it. And this, Rob Bottin, which is fucking killing it. The script, which is fantastic. The set design, which is fantastic. And everything's kind of just, light on the script. Like the script is definitely not something that's a masterpiece, but the film is a fucking masterpiece. How? It's just, I think there's everything that went into it makes this sci-fi horror perfection. I don't think it could get any better than this. And it's
pure cash money.
Make it that way. If it didn't have the flaws, it wouldn't be that good.
I wouldn't appreciate it as much. I love the flaws, like you said. I think it fits the film perfectly. This is an instant classic. I mean, top notch. Another film that's top shelf, in my opinion.
Hell yeah. And Dean Cundey came back to do the cinematography.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dean Cundey's like he's really good with anything that if he's a lead cinematographer, it's gonna look fantastic.
Oh yeah, we didn't even mention Chris for Dean Cundey, them developing what was it called? Pana slide or whatever. The Steadicam, the first ever Steadicam was developed and used for Halloween. That's how we get that weird ass opening scene where we're following up the stairs.
It was all one take for the first up leading up through where he kills his sister and everything. Yeah. One thing I wanted to mention about this movie for The Thing is the entire time that I'm watching it, after they discover the Norwegian facility that's found the body already, I want to know what the thing looked like when they first discovered it, when it was in the ice. They never show you what it originally looks like, because you're seeing the part where it's already taken over the people and it's already in mid formation of something else. I was always curious. I was like, man, what does the thing actually look like? You never find out.
I think it would
really
look
cool.
like a trimmer, like a trimmer, like something like that, like a monster that with
I've always
it looks like
been
human
interested.
skin, but
it would have tentacles for sure, because that's a trademark for every single one of them. Every time the thing comes out, it's always like those tentacle things flying everywhere. So I think it would look
yes. And I love the sound too, that whenever the tentacles are flying around, you have that, it almost sounds like insects on like a summer night or something. Like you can hear the insects making those noise like at a distance, and there's a lot of them, and they're all, I don't know, I really like the sound design they have with the aliens whenever they're transforming and stuff.
I agree.
hell yeah. Well, I mean, really, I could continue to say or just go on and beat the drum, but I think anybody listening to this podcast has most likely seen The Thing, and they've most likely seen Halloween. I think that they're more related than not. So when you come down to talking about The Thing and John Carpenter, it's hard not to say, like, let's think about John Carpenter's filmography. It's The Thing, it's Halloween. That's the two. That's always been the
Yeah.
ones. And
Uh,
both are not short of a masterpiece. I don't think that, they had a 2011 The Thing. It does not hold a torch to this.
not
Um,
even close.
Howard
Oh, that
Hawks.
reminds me.
Yeah, go ahead.
I remember whenever the 2011 version of the thing came out, I was looking up information on the new movie and I came across a review of the original thing. And somebody had wrote a review, and clearly they had no idea what they were getting themselves into. But it starts off with the review saying, I started this movie interested in seeing what was going to happen, and the film opens up with people in a plane trying to kill a dog. It was at that point that I decided that I was no longer going to be investing in my time into this piece of crap movie, and I will no longer watch it, and I turned it off. That was the review. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, that's the point of it because that dog starts the whole thing. It's not technically a dog. Like, and that's what brings the life force over. Like, it was so crazy. Like
That's it.
that they didn't even give it a chance a day because of that scene with like them trying to kill the dog. I just thought it was funny. I wanted to bring that up.
Listen, we have the Norwegian base there. We have the Antarctic US base there. The flamethrowers while they're there in the middle of this icy landscape with a fucking alien and a flamethrower. Who would not say yes to that? You know what I mean? I mean, it's so, it's just, and again, it's just going on that 80s kind of like, how would you even say it? There was like this action. You know what I'm talking about? During the 1980s, there was a certain type of action, and I think it kind of started with Terminator. But like we have movies like The Thing, Terminator, and all these kind of like movies, and then obviously we have martial art actors, like actors galore to thank for this, but it kind of like fits that big budget 1980s big screen cinema action film. And within it, we have this jet black sci-fi horror absurdist creature feature. And that's why The Thing gets a 10. That's it.
I'll piggyback off that. It is definitely worth a 10 in my opinion. It's right there. It's not a 10 like Halloween, but it's a well-deserving 10. So yes, I give it a 10.
So even from the opening title sequence, the title of the thing when it appears on screen, and you have the sound that comes with it, like it's explode, like it's ripping apart the screen itself, is what it sounds like. It's just it's I don't even know how to describe it, but it's just really intense. Like you're on the edge of your seat just from the title sequence. And then
Yep.
you feel the cold. As soon as the movie starts, you feel the cold air. You hear the sound of the wind blowing in the cold, and you're already invested. You're already there. You feel it, and then it just takes you on this big ride of like effect after effect after effect. And it's something that is, I don't know if you played the video game or not, but the video game was pretty close to the movie as well. The Thing video game
No.
from like the early 2000, 2002, 2003. It was an amazing game to play as well. But yeah, Kurt Russell does a fantastic job. This is one of the best movies, in my opinion, that Kurt Russell's been. I know people know him from like what Roadhouse and stuff like that. Um, I think this is one of the best movies he's ever done. And the paranoia that the movie gives off, it just you never know who's going to be. Every time I watch it, I can't remember at times who is the thing and who isn't during the times of the movie. Oh, it's just I don't figure it out until they literally tell you who's the thing.
Yeah.
I really love all the actors in it. Keith David is great in it. Even Wilford Brimley is good in it as well. There's some really cool side characters with windows. Everybody's kind of has their own little relatable thing you like about them and hate about them at the same time. But I give this movie a 10 as well, a very deserving 10. Special effects is top notch.
It's
Yep.
amazing. And I love how you said it, Chris, paranoia. That's a word that I think that you could use to describe The Thing perfectly, just by saying that.
Yeah.
So we got a 30, another 30. Shit. We have a two-way tie. Well, let's see what do you got, Chris? What's up next?
All right. So I chose a John Carpenter movie, which is They Live.
Excuse me.
You know, you look like your head fell on the cheese dip back in 1957. You're okay. This one, real fucking ugly.
And I'll go ahead. I like to read the back of the boxes, the back of the movies when I do mine. But it says horror master John Carpenter, from the director of The Thing and Halloween, directs this heart-pounding thriller in which aliens are systematically gaining control of the Earth by masquerading as humans and luring the public into submission. Humanity's last chance lies with a lone drifter who stumbles upon a harrowing discovery: a unique pair of sunglasses that reveals the terrifying and deadly truth. Now, this movie it literally has one of the funniest lines and most memorable lines in any horror film, which we'll get to it later. But the movie is just downright fun. It follows Roddy Piper, who was an ex-wrestler, who was an active wrestler at the time, who wanted to break out into movie making. John Carpenter is a fan of wrestling, so he wanted to have Roddy Piper in a film. And he goes, I guess he's like the box said he was a drifter. He's looking for work. He goes and gets a job at a construction site, and across the street from the construction site is something that's taking place that nobody is really aware of, that lives there. And because it's like what's those places called where people, like the homeless shelters, gather and stuff. I can't think of what it's called, but it's like one of those places. And he is not of the ordinary. He doesn't just like to fall into place and do as normal. He likes to look around and know where he's at and who he's with. So he starts noticing that things are happening at this local church, and he gets curious. So he goes over to the church and he finds that there is these boxes and boxes of these sunglasses that's being produced. And it's like illegally being produced. But he's really curious at, why is everybody going through the trouble to hide sunglasses? And so he puts them on and he finds out that, hey, you can see things with these. You can see the truth behind the government. It's telling you what you need to do and what you need to hear on a daily basis without you ever knowing it. And what's behind it is the aliens, because he discovers the aliens. Whenever you look at a person, you can see a real person, or you can see the alien version of the person. I think this movie is great. I think it's so much fun. And I think they chose Roddy Piper as the best lead. Like, he was perfect for that role. He knew how to play the comedy. He knew how to play the straight version of it as well. Keith David joins in. It's really weird we chose two movies with Keith David.
Yeah.
He's great in this as well. He doesn't take no for an answer, like literally ever. He doesn't fall into place with everything either. Like, there's that sequence where Keith David and Roddy Piper are fighting in an alleyway, and that scene goes on for like 10 minutes. It's the longest fight scene in a horror movie ever, I believe so. But neither of them are backing down. Like, he wants to beat him up, and he's like, "Put on the glasses." And Keith David is, "No, I won't do it." And I mean, it's literally like, it doesn't matter. You're never gonna make me put these glasses on. And it's just really cool. Now, there's a line, like I was saying earlier, there's a line in this movie that Roddy Piper says that is, even people who don't watch horror movies know this line. And he
Right.
walks into a bank. He has a shotgun in hand. Everybody's looking at him, and he says, "I've come here to chew bubblegum and to kick ass, and I'm all out of bubblegum." And apparently, according to I've read a few things, that line was Roddy Piper came up with that line. It wasn't Carpenter. That Roddy Piper was the one. He said he wanted to come in there and say something. He wanted it to be a little funny and but catchphrase, and he was treating it as if he was doing a promo for wrestling, and he came up with that line, and it's kind of cool.
For sure. Yeah, because when you watch the movie, though, that line, when it comes up, it kind of feels out of place. It's still hilarious, so it doesn't even matter. But you see him, what is it, like at the police car, and like he's like kicking their ass, and like he's like fucking like shooting them. Like he's kind of the serial killer. Like, he's kind of crazy at the same time. and he's just fucking like shooting him dead, and they like fall down, and next thing you know, it just cuts to the bank, and he's like, "I'm here to chew bubble gum and kick ass. I'm all out of bubble gum," and he just fucking like starts shooting him down, which is crazy. But yeah, I think that
We
Roddy
need,
Piper honestly makes the film. Just go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
he does. Oh no, yeah. We need that on a T-shirt. We really need to screen print that on a T-shirt. It's
Yeah.
an amazing
Well,
line, but
one of the funniest things, I laughed my ass off of this because I didn't remember this happened. But when he first discovers the alien race, he's looking at this one woman, and he looks around at another woman. He's like, "Oh, you're one ugly son of a bitch," and she's like, "Excuse me," and he looks over at somebody else. He's like, "You're okay, but you're real fucking ugly." Like that,
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I laughed so hard at that scene. It was so funny.
Well, I mean,
I
it's
laughed.
the
Oh, I'm
rich.
sorry. Go ahead.
No, sorry, Mike.
Yes,
I
yeah.
was just saying it was eat the rich. He looks over and sees this like all like hoity-toity style like woman in that grocery store, and she has her furs on, her pearls on, and he's like, you're real fucking ugly, kind of thing. It's like, but you're okay. And that's just like the regular folk. And I know that Carpenter made this like he made a political stance. It's very obvious. And damn, like I mean, it definitely is still relevant today, and I think it'll always be relevant at some capacity, no matter what. But I think that's something that's really interesting about it is because John Carpenter really brought something that was still in his genre, in a genre that he's familiar with, and he created something that was almost for him, you know, and to be able to make something that's very personal but still make it fun and funny with like Roddy Piper, fucking kicking ass the entire time. It's great.
It's a very
There's
political stated movie as well.
there's two parts in this movie that I absolutely die laughing or like, how the hell did this happen? The first one is when Piper gets thrown out of a window down a hill, tumbles, gets right the back the fuck up, and kind of walks and runs away from police and hides under another hill, like on the hills of California, South California. It's just like he falls down a hill, busts out a window, and it wasn't just like a 10-foot drop. I'm talking, this is probably 20, 25 feet, then rolls down a fucking mountain and just jumps right back up. That one right there stands out. And then second, it's toward the end when Piper busts open or the signal wave to make where these aliens are being covered up in human skin. Well, there's a sex scene where this woman is having sex with this dude, and she looks at him. And he looks at her and he's like, "Come on, baby, what's wrong?" Like it's just that I lost it, man. I haven't seen this movie in years, but I am so glad we rewatched this. It's like The Thing. More of a comedy side with this. Definitely a political side.
It's political satire is what it is for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
Did you guys catch at the end of it there, close to the same scene you're talking about, Mike, with the sex scene, where because it's going like a montage of like everywhere around the world because now everybody can see the aliens, and it cuts to like a news broadcast or you can hear the news broadcast, and it's this lady. She's like, "We have had enough of these directors." With all of these gore in their films, such as George Romero and John Carpenter. And I just thought it was really funny that he mentioned himself in the film.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's hilarious. And there's a lot of there was a lot of really deep moments in the film in terms of being like a political stance, but then that like we've been talking about, it's a comedy almost, it's satire. So I think it was definitely something that Carpenter did a great job with making, and there's definitely a lot to continue to go back to. Every 4 years of election night, there's an election coming up. Watch They Live and be reminded. And the set design in this is also very good. If you look at I think the scene that stands out the most is the scene at the supermarket, the one that we were talking about with the woman and the man, and saying like, "Oh, you're real fucking ugly." Right before that, he puts on the sunglasses, like one of the first times ever. And the entire supermarket is labeled with like that propaganda, like the political statements. And if you look close, like even the cans, like all the cans, like all the boxes. And I actually was watching an interview because I was like, that's absolutely insane. And they were talking about how that was the most expensive shot in the entire movie. And it was a shot they had to prepare for a very long time. And it took a very long time to make that set from scratch because they actually went in practically with all like the cans and all the boxes and put all that in there. So it was definitely, yeah, it was something that's really
Well,
interesting.
I noticed that as well because there's a scene where it shows the TV and he's looking at the newscasters. And even in the small print on the TV at the very bottom of the TV, where like the logo of the TV would be, like instead of saying
Mhm.
Samsung, it says sleep 8 hours. And so it's really cool. They got like every little detail of the things are in there. And if you look, no matter where you look in the film, you're going to see something like even like the magazine articles and everything are all right there, like really small print and everything is made for it. It's really cool.
Yeah, and I
I
love
agree.
how detailed that is. But I mean, like,
Yeah.
let's just be honest, the star of the show here, before anything else, is Roddy Piper. Like the guy
Yeah.
this is his role. This is it's just he makes the entire movie. He kicks so much ass the entire time. And I mean, without him in it, it just would not be the same for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Definitely
agree.
carried the movie.
Oh yeah.
I love the idea that they were like Carpenter was like, we got to figure out a way to like to hide the aliens. What's a good way for us to be able to reveal them? Oh, I got it. Sunglasses. Like you put on the glasses, you see them, you take them off, you can't. And then later on in the movie, like I forgot all about this when I was watching it. They introduced the contact lens, where they're like, hey, it cuts out the signal. You put the contact lens in, and you can see without having that signal hit your body and make you sick. Because if they mentioned that the sunglasses, if you wear them for too long, it makes you nauseous, which I thought was kind of clever that it caused problems with you because it's almost like a television signal that you're getting in by wearing the sunglasses.
Yeah. And also I think it's also kind of metaphorical. It could be like viewing the world through rose-colored glasses. You know,
Yeah,
whenever you're rich, you're gonna put on those glasses and you're gonna just conform to society the way it is. So I think that's probably the perfect way to get the point across to saying, the sunglasses, boom, rose-colored glasses. So
and can we
amazing.
take a moment to just thank Meg Foster for her wonderful blue eyes that she has?
Oh,
Like I don't know
I
what it is
always
like.
forget that Meg Foster's even in this film, and I don't know why. It's just like she doesn't even exist in it.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but she has the weirdest eyes ever. Like they almost look like alien eyes, and it fits for the movie because she could be one of the aliens.
Hmm.
yeah.
But yeah, it's so weird.
But let's talk about John to like kind of bring everything full circle here. Let's just talk about John Carpenter's like timeline. Like we talked about Halloween going into the thing, and then something very different here with They Live. Overall, do you what kind of genre do you feel like was the best to Carpenter in terms of like his craft? Because like we have three completely different genre films. Like obviously They Live kind of fits into that alien kind of sci-fi, but it's also mostly just political satire. So we have like a satirical film here. We have Pitch Black, bonkers alien sci-fi, and then we have straight horror. And I don't really necessarily know. I know that he like everybody knows that John Carpenter doesn't really talk about Halloween anymore. But when we talk about something like They Live, I feel like even to this day, he feels like it resonates with him. So there's definitely a clear favorite of his, but everybody always says, well, Halloween, of course, is his best movie. But then if you ask him, he's like, Halloween is not my best film. I have so many other films that's better.
I think they're all great in their genre that they live in. Like the Thing has that paranoia alien film. It's perfect for that. The They Live has the propaganda alien movie. Like it's perfect for that. And Halloween has that atmospheric Halloween or slasher aspect, and I think it's perfect for that genre. I think he crafted them very well for each thing that he was going for.
What do you think of the
Agree.
war? Did you like the war? No one liked.
I've never seen The Ward.
I did not care. What, there gets to a moment where directors continues to make films, and Dario Argento, for example, his most recent films, just none of them hit. So, I mean, same for Carpenter. Definitely just stay in the '80s with them, but it's tough because I give Halloween a 10. I give The Thing a 10. I think we all can agree that both of those are masterpieces.
Yeah,
I hate to say it, but there's something about They Live that falls flat in terms of being a masterpiece. Is it
I
good?
agree.
Yes. Is it fun? Yes. Is the story very meaningful? Yes. Is it important to Carpenter? It's clear. It was very important to Carpenter. And I think especially it's very important to watch today. I think it's timeless. That being said, I didn't necessarily feel as authentic of acting as I felt in previous Carpenters. I felt like the script, while it was so close to being like so good, it was so close to being so good. It really kind of just took the left hand turn and multiple times throughout. And I did take problems with some of the pacing. It seemed a little choppy. Um, this is no way of me criticizing They Live, because I absolutely do love the film, and it's much better than 90% of the horror movies out of the '80s. But I mean, very clearly there is some issues. Do you guys have any issues like that came up that you want to point out?
Um, I'm kind of with you on. It's almost disrespectful to say it fell flat on some things, but that's the only thing I can think of.
It did.
Like it fell. I don't know what either, but it's missing something.
The pacing.
It, it could be, or it could even maybe more. I mean, the story's cheesy. It's supposed to be cheesy. It's fun. It's over the top. Um,
Yeah, I don't know if I got
Piper,
that from it though. I don't know if I got the cheesiness from it. I think that in terms of the character that damn Roddy Piper, the
Roddy
character
Piper,
he's
yeah.
playing is cheesy, but the movie's supposed to be kind of like serious, but it's also he plays it cheesy.
But it isn't though. In a way, like it is, but it isn't. Like
Yeah,
you can
I
see
get what you're saying.
it is serious, but it isn't serious. It's more like fun. I I just felt like if I was sitting down and watching it, I wouldn't take this as a serious movie. It's kind of like a roller coaster. It's fun. Let's ride it. It's up. It's over. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed every bit of it. But for me to give this movie a 10, that would be a stretch. But I do love the movie to the point where I feel like if I gave it like a 7, that would be way too low. Um, I'm giving this movie. I want to give it a 9, but it's still missing a little something. I give this movie an 8. I really do. I think it's a solid pick for this film, just because I don't know what it's missing. But my thing is, it's not an 8 being like disrespectful to the movie. It's like a solid 8. Could be a 9. I know we don't give half points on this, but like an 8.5. But it's a very good movie, and I really enjoy it. And I loved watching this, and I'd rewatch it over again. Don't mind it, but it's missing something. And maybe you're right, Tyler. Maybe it is pacing, or maybe I don't take it as serious as they want to project it. It is, but I I don't know. It misses a little something.
Yeah, I think guys are both right. It's even though that it's a really fun movie, it's a very entertaining movie. It's
Hmm.
well acted. It's everything is really the effects are even really good. The story's really
Hmm.
good. You can watch it anytime. It does miss something. There is something there that's keeping it from being a flat
An
out
elite,
classic.
yeah.
Yeah. And there is a few things you asked me what I could nitpick about it, and there is a couple things I could think of. One being is when they go into the tunnel, when they switch that watch, and if they jump down the hole and they're in the tunnel or whatever, and you're led to believe that they're underground. They even mention it. He goes, "Where are we at?" He's like, "I think we're under the city." And then they have that big area where it looks like they're in space, where
Yeah.
you get the tunnel that shoots them off into space. And I'm like, well, how's that under the city if it's like
Yeah.
an opening to out and outer space? I don't understand that. And then they walk up one flight of stairs and they're in the newsroom, and it's like what the TV station newsroom. And it's like, well, I don't understand while they're in the newsroom. How did nobody catch on that the newsroom leads straight to this underground city? And why do they have to have a machine that puts a hole in the ground in order to get to there? Like, it didn't make any sense to me, but it's passable. It doesn't really affect the movie watching or anything really.
Could you take it as if like this was like the newsroom was actually like the spaceship hub? So like it wasn't really underground. It was just like you were inside the spaceship when it jumped down, not necessarily you're under the city. So like how like they did the news and they got the message out there and they had the signal on top of the building. Did you ever kind of get the feeling like maybe this is like the main hub, make like the main spaceship, and they were actually inside the spaceship when they jumped down into the hole other than the city? Like he said, yeah, I think we're under the city or whatever. But maybe they were like inside the spaceship the whole time. Maybe I'm more than likely wrong, but possibility.
Yeah, I have no idea. It's clue because they're
Yeah.
literally attached to the building that the news station is, where they go
Hmm.
outside on Earth. But then when they're underground, it's like out. You see this outer space and everything. Like, it just doesn't make any sense on where you're really at or
Right.
how it's there. But I still really really like the movie, and it's a lot of fun. And if I'm not mistaken, is this the one of the few movies where all the main characters die?
Ooh, I didn't think about that. Yeah, that's actually a pretty good point.
Because what's his I want to call him Childs because of the thing, but Keith David's character,
David.
um he's helping out, he's following along going up to the tower where the signal's coming through, and Meg Foster's character pulls a gun on him. You don't see the actual gunshot, but you hear it, and then she walks out alone, and when he tries to shoot the signal, the big glass bar or whatever, he shoots it, and then it explodes, and the people from the helicopter shoot him a couple times, and he falls back, and then the whole entire thing blows up. So you're led to believe that he dies as well, even though it's not technically shown. But I'm
Hmm.
assuming that all of the main cast is dead.
I mean, I think that's how I interpreted it, Chris, honestly. So I think that you're appreciate that because that's what I thought as well. But I think Mike gave it an 8, and I do agree with your analysis too, Mike. I think you hit the nail on the head. I think both of you guys have given a really good rundown of the way I feel about it as well. And I'm also with you. I'm between 8 and a 9, 8.5. I think that the thing is you wanted to give it an 8.5. I want to give it an 8.5. So you had to give it an
Hmm.
8. So I'm gonna give it a 9. So that way we can kind of have an 8.5.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I respect
Because
that.
I
I
would
mean,
normally give it
I
an
was
eight
right
and a
there
half.
with you.
Okay. Because
Yeah.
I was gonna do 8.5.
Well, just because he looks at the rich old lady and tells her she's really fucking ugly, I'm going to give it a 9.
So 9, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 5, 6, 26. And those are all 3 solid scores. And those all
Yeah.
3 are fantastic John Carpenter movies. I wasn't trying to drag They Live in any capacity. It's still, nothing short of nearly a masterpiece in its own respect. But let's just be honest, The Thing and Halloween are the 2 crown jewels of
Yeah.
Carpenter, and it always just has been that way for me. And I think it's that way for most horror fans. So, but again, 3 solid films. So we have a
I
problem,
agree.
guys. 2-way tie. We are between The Thing and we're between Halloween. Do we
So
fight to the death or?
Lax, think of a
two
number and we pick.
well, two-way tie, so you all cancel each other out and I win.
That's not how it goes. If we guess how many Mountain Dews you've drank today, we win.
Oh,
No,
Fair
I
wins.
have Helen, I have an idea of who wins. I already know who wins. So we
Uh,
played tagline trivia earlier today. Tyler was the only one to get one right. I think
Hey!
Nice.
Tyler should win.
Let me tell you though, The Thing winning against Halloween is probably one of the greatest things I've ever heard in my life. I love that. So that means I got to think of something to add on the wheel. So let's take a quick break and we're going to come right back to spin that wheel.
Welcome back, everybody. Hope you all enjoyed that quick little break that we had there. And it is that time again for us to spin the wheel to choose our next episode. We have a lot of fun things that's still left on the wheel that hasn't been chosen yet. And Tyler, from where he won this week's episode, he got to choose the item, and his choice is actually kind of cool. I'm really looking forward to hopefully we get that option. He chose to add to the wheel Fulci versus Argento. So that would be, we actually have 6 movies. We each get to pick a Fulci film and an Argento film, and we'll battle all 6 of those films together. We also have family horror, tier ranking, where we would choose a franchise or a genre of some sort, and we would rank those movies. An interview with a celebrity of some from a horror film, a commentary on a horror film, or shark attack movies, werewolf movies, films from the years we were born, Clown Town, possession flicks, and I don't know why found footage keeps making its way back on there for some reason, but it was there. 80s slasher films. So those are the options that we have. Hopefully we'll get the one we all want with next. So Tyler, do us the honor and spin the wheel.
All right. I can't do it fast.
And let's see. Here we go. What we get? Werewolf movies.
That'll be
Werewolf.
fun.
Werewolves.
That's gonna be fun.
Honestly, for the month of October, I think that would be an interesting episode.
Yeah, I agree.
For sure.
I think I already got mine.
Yeah, I think I know what Mike's gonna choose already too.
Oh yeah, like
What
it's
are you
one of
gonna
my
choose,
probably. It's one of my favorites. Silver Bullet.
Hey, 2 in a row.
Tyler spun the wheel twice. It landed on werewolf films.
Yeah.
That's funny. But I was just like, I've always been curious. I'm like, if we were to spin the wheel one more time, what would happen? And I just wanted to say, but I mean, it said, the wheel said, fuck you, you're going to do werewolf films.
Must be a full moon out tonight.
What were you doing, Mike? What was your, what would you choose?
Silver Bullet.
Silver Bullet? Okay, nice.
It's up there, man. That's one of my favorites.
Yeah. Do you know what you would choose, Tyler?
You know, I'm gonna look up werewolf films because while I have a couple in mind, I always forget some of the like on the spot. I always forget a good werewolf film that I'd want to watch. What the hell? Why is
It all depends on what you choose. I have 2 options, but if you don't choose either of those, then I know which one I'm going to choose.
Yeah, I'm gonna think about it and we'll see. Because I have a couple in mind that I really want to do, but I'm not for sure which one I want to pick. But
what's the ones you're curious about doing?
well, I'm thinking about possibly, I don't know. I'm not for sure. What were your 2?
So I'm strung between doing Bad Moon from the night. It's like the mid 90s. Or a movie that came out back in like I want to say 2012 or 13. I mean, I didn't mean later than that, but it's called Late Phases.
Yeah. I remember that one. I actually had that one on Blu-ray. No, I wasn't thinking to do either of those. We'll see. Well, thank you guys so much for listening tonight to Fright Fights. We had an awesome time talking about John Carpenter. I had a great time hanging out with these guys. Can't wait for the next episode. I hope to see you guys there. Once again, I'm Tyler. There's Chris. Here's Mike. We are Fright Fights. Connect with us, all of our social medias. Rate us on all of our platforms. And again, we will see you on the flip side.
Its origin, alien. Location, Antarctica. Age, unknown. Intent, survival. Destination, man. John Carpenter's The Thing, the ultimate in alien terror. Rated R. Starts Friday at a theater near you. Check newspapers for local listings.